Hey everyone, arebelspy here, bringing you Shadow Era commentary number 17. This commentary is titled Here Be Monsters, and of course this is based on the card Here Be Monsters, and you will see why. Here Be Monsters used to be auto-include 4x in pretty much every deck, just about, and because it took away a resource from your opponent every time you played it, and now it only takes away resource if they have more resources than you, but it also lets you draw a card. It's mostly useless now. I haven't really seen it much since the nerf, which is good. In my opinion, resource denial is kind of a NPE, a negative play experience. If people just have, if resource denial cards like Plague and Here Be Monsters and things like that were too good, it would just be, it's just frustrating to play against. People don't have fun with that, and so it's kind of fun to play to annoy your opponent, but playing against it is just a frustrating experience, and it's not good for card games in general, I believe. And so it's good that Here Be Monsters and Sandra were nerfed, but here, this is a 1.26 game where my opponent actually used Here Be Monsters multiple times, and it was effective and frustrating, and so I wanted to cast this game, and you guys will kind of see what happens. So Zaladar player gets to go first, and he tosses out a Spark. I'm playing a Zhanna deck, and I think it's the same one I'm playing in the Titan tournament, and he doesn't have a extra sparks, luckily, for his turn 2, so he just attacks me and ends his turn. And let's see if I have a 2-drop here. I apparently don't have any Puins, and if I had a Blake, I chose not to play it. And so he gets a Bad Wolf for his 3-drop, and then hits my hero again with his Spark. And if you'll notice now, I'll comment on that in a minute. So he's at, for my 3-drop, I'm assuming I play Jasmine, and I do. Now, I'm going to pause here. If you notice, we're both at 3 resources. I'm at 5 cards to his 3, obviously, because he's played more cards to the board, and he went first, so he got to draw one less. I'm hoping to get out a Wizened Staff to really magnify that advantage, because I think that's a big weakness of Zaladar right now, is its card draw is just not good. So if I can just exploit that and have way more cards out, I'll be able to just spam the board with allies and eventually win. I apparently heal my guy just for 2. That's kind of a bad play. I should have just saved that to do the full heal of 3. I don't know why I did that. Probably just was not paying much attention and decided to use her ability. So he does go ahead and let his Spark die to my Jasmine in order to kill her with his Bad Wolf. So he's left with a Bad Wolf and an Infernal on board, and I'm left with nothing. Oh, one other thing I forgot to note. That turn, he did not sacrifice a card. He's still at 3 resources. I'm still at 3. Even though he went first, he did not sacrifice a card there. So he's also still at 3 cards in hand because he drew 1 to go up to 4, and then he played the Infernal to go back down to 3. So he did not sacrifice a card. And that is almost universally a terrible play. If you're at 3 resources to not sack a card, that's usually really bad. But he didn't. And I actually noticed that when we were playing. I saw that somehow I got ahead in resources, and I was like, huh, he just must not have sacked last turn. This guy doesn't seem to know what he's doing. So I do sacrifice, and I get a Wizened Staff so that I can exploit that card draw advantage, and I'm like, because right here, I go ahead and hit his hero for 1, because hitting neither of his guys does nothing. And right here, I'm at 4 resources. Next turn, I'm going to sack 1 and play Tidal Wave and just wipe his guys. I'm like, whatever, I'm going to have so many more cards here. I wipe his guys off with Tidal Wave, and then I just win the game. Essentially is my plan. So now he draws to 4 cards, and once again, he does not sack a card right here. And I'm just like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, okay, sure. And he plays a Here Be Monsters, which knocks me back down to 3. And I go, that's annoying, because my plan was to do Tidal Wave. I can't afford a Tidal Wave because of that. And the Here Be Monsters lets him draw an extra card. So he draws a card with the Here Be Monster. He uses up all his resources, but it's essentially, since it lets him draw a card, a 1-for-1, and it prevents me from getting extra resources. So I'm like, slightly frustrated there, and he hits my hero a couple times, and wears out my staff a little bit. And my plan was, right here, on my turn, I was going to sacrifice a 5th resource and wipe the board with Tidal Wave, and then draw with my staff so that my staff would survive extra turns. But instead, I just drop a Jasmine. And I'm like, okay, well, next turn, he's probably going to kill off the Jasmine here. So and then he plays another Here Be Monsters. He again does not sacrifice. He's still at 3, lets me be ahead of him at 4, doesn't sacrifice, plays a second Here Be Monsters, which lets him draw a card, and keeps us the same resources. Now, if you notice right here, we are both at 3 resources, and we're both at 5 cards in hand. Even though I've had Wizened Staff out for 2 turns now, he has the same number of cards as me in hand. So it's helping get that card advantage back, and he uses Zaladar's ability to hit my ally and my hero, and then he'll go ahead and use the Infernal to finish off Jasmine, and then use the Bad Wolf to hit my hero again. So he is keeping his guys on board, keeping me from playing that Tidal Wave, keeping me from that crucial 5-drop, and now he's killed my Wizened Staff. And if I didn't have that Wizened Staff now, I'd have way less cards in hand, because that's gotten me 2 cards. I'd only have, after I play this, I'd only have 2 cards in hand to his 5 if I hadn't had that Wizened Staff out. Because I have to keep sacrificing a card every turn. Sacrifice a card, and then they just keep getting destroyed. So I toss out an Alden, which will let me soak up some damage, keep some damage off of my hero while I'm trying to build up for that stupid Tidal Wave. And he plays a 3rd Here Be Monsters. Now look, he's at 6 cards in his hand to my 4. And he has multiple guys on board, and we're both still at 3 resources. And so I'm just going, what the hell? Am I losing to a Here Be Monsters deck? What is going on here? And so for my 4-drop, I drop out another Wizened Staff because I'm getting low on cards, and shockingly he is not. And now I think he does go ahead and sack some cards so that he can start getting more resources on board. And he drops out a Bad Wolf and a Spark, and he attacks my hero some more. I'm already, if you notice, down to 10 health at this point because I've been using my ability, my Shadow Energy, to draw with Wizened, and 10 after the Infernal hit, obviously. Using my Shadow Energy to draw with Wizened, and so I haven't been able to heal much. But I'm like, no big deal. I do finally have the 5 resources I need to Tidal Wave and wipe the board, and we're both at 4 cards in hand. I do have that Wizened out, so I'm feeling fairly comfortable in that I will be able to mostly, hopefully pull back ahead here. He does drop out a Keldor and puts a Life Infusion on it, so that guy's going to do some damage. And I think right here by this point I've drawn a 2nd Tidal Wave, and yep, I did. So I decided to use that to get rid of his Keldor because I need to keep his guys off the board. And now that he's down to only 2 or 3 cards in hand, he's not going to be able to play a lot that I'm worried about dealing with. He plays a Chimera, and that's fine. That's no big deal. I drop out a Raven and draw with my Wizened Staff. And his turn, he uses Chimera, pumps it up, hits my hero for 5, which I'm going to kill his Chimera next turn with my Wizened, or so I think, and then he mind controls my Raven, who does 3 damage. And then, of course, his Zaladar has built up plenty of energy, and so he goes ahead and finishes me off with his ability. Fairly sure here. We'll see. Yeah, there we go. So I lose. And notice I had 2 health here. Even if I would have had 1 more health from that early heal, accidentally not healing me 1 extra, I still would have lost there. It's still important to note, don't heal when you're not going to heal for the full 3. That was just a stupid move early on for me not paying attention, but it ended up not mattering. So I lose the game here, and I'm real confident against Zaladar. If I take that Zhanna deck against Zaladar, I'm going to win the majority of the time. I'll just flat out declare that, and if anyone disagrees with me, I'll gladly take on challengers to that assertion, but I'm going to be beating Zaladar the majority of the time I'll win a best of 5. But that game just did not go my way, and due to Here Be Monsters, which it essentially acted as a mini Plague. And you guys know my feelings on Plague. If you don't, you can go check out my first commentary and I think my 6th, where I discussed Plague a couple times. And we've heard enough about that, but I'm going to talk about how Here Be Monsters essentially acted as a mini Plague, because it just kept pinging me down 1-1-1 3 turns in a row, keeping me from that crucial tidal wave. And it only worked because he had already established board control at that point. If I had multiple guys on board and he chose not to sack when he's at 3 and use up all 3 of his resources for Here Be Monsters, and he had done that 3 times in a row when I've got guys on the board and I'm just attacking him, he loses the game. Obviously, he can't. That's not a viable play. It was only because he had the Infernal and the Bad Wolf, he had board control, and he could waste all his resources on playing the Here Be Monster every turn and not sacking, and that let him draw an extra card, so it kept filling up his hand, that it let him get into a huge advantageous position that by the time I was able to tidal wave the board, I was down to 10 health. So if he didn't already have board control, that plan wouldn't have worked. But the way it did work quite well. The way he played it was pretty ingenious. It kept me from doing what I needed to do, and kind of had to toss out allies there just to essentially soak up damage from him. And so that was it was an interesting game, losing a game to Here Be Monsters, and I thought I'd commentate that because that was kind of fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you next time.